Back to this top story now. Government says it's made enormous progress in transforming the skewed and racially structured economy. Speaking at the inaugural Black Industrialists and Exporters Conference, President Cyril Ramaphosa announced that there are now over 300,000 black-owned formal businesses in South Africa who own half of the SMMEs in the formal sector. This from around 150,000 black-owned formal business in 1994. Now, let's get the latest on the conference. We now cross to SABC News business anchor Nompumelelo Siziba. Nompu, thank you so much for your time. Of course, the president saying a lot, also acknowledging that government, in fact, has made enormous progress in transforming what he calls skewed, racially structured economy. But a lot still needs to be done, isn't it?
Absolutely, Unati. That's exactly what he was saying, that a lot of progress has been made, and those stats that you've just read there, indeed, that's what the president was saying, that there's been a massive increase in ownership of SMEs in South Africa by black owners or black entrepreneurs, but there's so much more that needs to be done. He was talking about ensuring that black businesses are able to scale up to get to really serious juggernaut industrial levels that we've seen with other key players around the world, the likes of General Electric. He cited one of those, but certainly saying that there's still so much progress that needs to be made, and was totally unapologetic for the BEE policy that the government holds as we speak. Now, of course, there are many beneficiaries of the Black Industrialist program, and I'm joined by one of them. His name is Sandile Mapatiane. He's the CEO at Naledi Hlanganiso Rail, and obviously, as the rail tells us, it's happening. He works in the rail sector. Thank you very much for joining us, Sandile. Just give us a sense of the kind of benefit that you got from the Black Industrial program and how it's helped you in your business.
Thank you for having me. The scheme benefited us greatly in terms of acquiring or attaining a plant. The plant is based in Vereeniging, which is a tire manufacturing plant for freight wagons for Transnet, and then also we do supply solid wheels for Transnet and passenger trains for Prasa. So in that regard, the business in its own capacity, it comprises of 60% exports to the European markets. So it has given us an opportunity to sort of like break in a global space, operate in a global space.
Without it, do you think it would have been very difficult for you to gain traction in what you do?
Yes, it would be challenging because the markets are a bit broad. You sort of like needed that injection or assistance in terms of covering that landscape, and obviously the markets locally are a bit saturated because they only comprises of three in the form of Prasa, Transnet. Now we have a Gibela, of which Gautrain just came on board recently, and those are speed or bullet trains rather. So we haven't yet had an opportunity in terms of aftermarket sales as far as those are concerned. But we are currently involved within the new build being Gibela, the call it rolling stock, which serves as an aftermarket where we supply those components to Transnet in terms of forged solid wheels. So, but locally, we are amongst the few that are able to manufacture the whole tire from a steel billet, meaning from a raw material throughout the whole value chain till supply.
So while you've had this support and you say that you really needed it and it's really assisted you, what are some of the challenges that you face in the industry that you're working in right now?
Mainly, it's the industry. When we acquired the firm, it's lack of a better word, stone age. The framework has not been re-engineered, meaning we are still subdued to European standards. and it's more of the approach being taken by some of the policies. It's more of me, for example, saying the tolerance levels are of those in the first world countries where we know our infrastructure. Give you an example, it's more of me saying in a rural area, you need to drive a Ferrari. The roads are bad. And here they will say they need tolerances where you can use a product or a commodity. Trains, passenger trains here, the speed limit is 80 kilometers. And you'll be using a product that it's 120 kilometers and more in form of a solid wheels. Our infrastructure does not necessarily need that kind of a component. So it's not necessarily fit for purpose, including standards. Like I indicated that we do 60% of exports. So we have to conform to certain standards, IRIS and so forth, whereby in Europe they have their own standards, in Asia they have their own standards, but in Africa we don't. And in South Africa we don't. Where we need whomever that wants to export to the continent, we need to also preserve the market as well, because like I indicated, it's a very small market, and it does not necessarily have a bigger pool.
Yeah.
And the demand, it's not as much, and the growth path as well, whereby we need to at some point look into localizing that aspect so that we are able to have a steel mill where we start the process. We need not to import the billet.
Yes.
We do it in-house.
Yeah.
We are impacted even by the war in Ukraine, where it leads to delayed lead times in getting the steel offshore or into the shores rather. Whereas COVID has shown us everything was impacted on air and sea.
Why do you need to import steel when we have ArcelorMittal?
Currently, billets that they are producing are not of the desired size. We do take from them as well, but they require for them to sustain the size that we are utilizing for us to take about 3,000 tons. And our usage is about 10,000 tons, which becomes not viable or not conducive for them in terms of that market space.
Okay, thank you very much, Andile, for giving us Sandile, pardon me, for giving us a sense of your business and what it's about. Sandile basically saying that there are limitations in terms of our steel industry. We have our key player, that is ArcelorMittal, and if they want to buy from them, they have to buy very large lots, which puts a very an increased limitation on their ability. If they try and buy small lots, they're obviously going to be charged that much more. So they have to import steel, which is a kind of interesting situation. They're impacted by what's happening in Russia and Ukraine because of lead times, supply chains being disrupted. But basically coming to the point of this whole conference, that is the Black Industrialist Program, saying that the benefit that they've got has been immeasurable and has enabled them to stay and play in the game that they're currently in. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Inati. Thank you very much for joining us.
Well, Nompu, thank you so much for that update. Of course, lots to unpack. That's why we'll be coming to you later on in the program. That was Nompumelelo Siziba coming to us live there from that conference in Sandton City taking place at the moment. Of course, we will be taking you to our live press as soon as it begins in Sandton City.